Are you a prepper or homesteader looking to connect with like-minded people in your area? Looking to start your own preparedness group? Already have a group? Well, look no further than PrepperNet. PrepperNet is dedicated to personal responsibility, individual freedoms, and being self-reliant. PrepperNet has monthly meetings in over 100 cities where you can meet and learn with like-minded people in your area. PrepperNet, where preppers unite. Find us online at preppernet.com.
Survive, thrive, stay alive. It's time to get prepared with the Prepping Academy podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grid Down Comms Up on the Prepping Academy podcast. Today, I want to bring to you a very special guest, Jacob Schmidt, the founder of AmRRON, which stands for the American Readout Radio Operators Network. It is the premier communications network for emergency communications and emergency communications preparedness in the country. And we are very lucky with PrepperNet to have a wonderful working relationship with Jacob and the AmRRON team. And I wanted to bring him on and just hear a little bit about what's going on with AmRRON, the future of AmRRON. But first, before we get started, I want to tell you about an event that I will be at in September. The Eastern Tennessee Homestead Alliance Festival will be taking place September 12th and 13th. That's a Friday and Saturday in September in Knoxville, Tennessee. They've moved from Townsend, Tennessee last year. It is a wonderful, awesome event. There will be lots of speakers on homesteading, permaculture, preparedness, and a variety of other topics. It is a family-friendly event. There's kids' sessions and things for kids to do all day long. So bring the family, make a weekend of it, and get to meet some other wonderful folks that are into homesteading, preparedness, and a more sustainable, independent lifestyle. We look forward to seeing you there. First, I want to get an answer to a question that some of us may not know because we didn't start with AmRRON. We started somewhere else. We came to AmRRON later. So, JJS, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show with me here.
This is a real honor. It's a pleasure to be with you, to talk to you. And it has been a great relationship with PrepperNet. Awesome folks over there. And, our ability to contribute as far as, supporting communications, the communications side of things, that's where our primary focus is. And we know that that's not everybody's first calling. But for those of you who are, that's comms is what you're drawn to. We really want to be there to support you and support PrepperNet overall. Because man, if you don't have comms, you're in trouble. And it's a critical component.
So many of us learned that the hard way. This past year with the hurricane in western North Carolina, PrepperNet has a lot of folks there, and it was eye-opening to a lot of them, to say the least. So
I can tell you, a first-person account. Many of you probably have heard about this ambush, this wildfire that was started through arson, and it lured the fire department in, and this shooter killed 2 and wounded 1 and turned into an active shooter situation. Well, that's very close to where I live. And so immediately my phone began just going crazy with all the texts and everything coming in. People are sharing information. Well, because this is local, there's all kinds of, scanner activity on police, fire, and the ham radio bands. And I got caught with my pants down. I mean, as far as comms goes, I have been reconfiguring everything in my shack. I had no scanner hooked up. My local VHF UHF I had a handheld sitting there. I mean, I had to scramble, and so this was such a great lesson about when you need comms. There's little to no warning oftentimes. And you've got to be prepared in advance. Now, I've got comms gear and I've got antennas and everything, but nothing was hooked up right. And so I had been traveling, so I had a bag with comms gear and I had to go fish out my scanner. I mean, it took me a while to get set up before I could really start getting situational awareness about what was happening locally. And it was an eye opener for me. So, when these events happen that you need to get comms, you've got to be ready. You've got to be practiced with it. You cannot just stow it away somewhere and think, when the zombies come, then I'll get it out. You've got to keep it operational and keep everything up to date, programmed, and remain familiar with your equipment, so you're not trying to fumble your way through things to get them operational. So anyway, this is a good first-person real-world wake-up, even for me.
Oh, absolutely. Sunday night while we were running your digital net, I was seeing all the stuff come through about that and was thinking, I was like, I think that's pretty close to where JJS lives. I hope everything is going okay up there with him. So glad to hear things fared okay on your front there, but that's still another example of the unexpected that just creeps out of left field and goes, hey, you're going to have to deal with this right now.
Exactly. I could see the smoke from the fire from where I am, and then this guy's missing, and so it had everybody on edge. But I wanted situational awareness. I needed to have comms, and of course that was a grid up situation. So social media information's flying, but the best and firsthand eyewitness information was coming in real time over the radio, and so that that's where you can get on Broadcastify and tune into a local streaming scanner app, but that's one channel in an area with multiple repeaters and comms where a lot of information is flowing very quickly, and you'd be very limited just by counting on the internet-based scanning type of capability to have situational awareness about what's going on in your community, because all of those repeaters and many of the first responder frequencies were not being simulcasted, over the internet. And so, yeah, it's got to have your stuff together ahead of time.
Yeah, it reminds me of how true several years ago I coined a slogan or catchphrase for PrepperNet comms that was kind of hokey, but it was, without comms, you're just another guy wondering what just happened, and it's so true in those situations. If you don't have it, you're just standing there in the dark going, why is the smoke rising over here? So glad to hear that everything turned out, for you okay. I want everybody to, just kind of lift up in prayers and thoughts those that were injured or died in that incident. It's a terrible tragedy, and I'm sure that your community is very shaken from that.
Lots of support for the families and the firefighters.
That's excellent. That's what community is for. That's why we work so hard to build those communities. I wanted to ask you, kind of out of my planned questions here, what inspired you to start AmRRON? I know AmRRON started, it's been over a decade now, right?
14 years we're coming up.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
That is.
I started off in the Army as a radio operator with 5th Special Forces Group and then 3rd Special Forces Group. And I was in Desert Storm with 3rd Group. And, as a young man in my early 20s, it was my job, is what I had to do, but my heart wasn't in it. I've always been fascinated with radio stuff, but I got out and got away from it. Got into I was a DoD contractor for several years, and the family business, and so it's something that I used to do in my mind. I started Radio Free Redoubt as a podcast to kind of promote the political migration of conservative, patriot-minded, preparedness-minded people to get out of the cities, get out of these areas that are falling, what we call blue states now, right? But let's strategically relocate to strengthen these strong areas and get involved politically, and so on and so forth. Well, one component of that is preparedness, prepping. And it occurred to me, if a major grid down emergency happened, the Patriots really have no standardized plan to reach out, to contact each other, to coordinate, to share information or intelligence. So my background in radio communications started coming back up to the surface. And I thought, well, let's start off with this CH3 project. Most of the people in my circle, which was a network of families that had a plan to all link up together in case something major happened, for mutual support and maybe to relocate or bug out, together, safety in numbers. And, how do we link up? Well, most of the people had CBs or FRS radios or AmRROs radios. So we standardized on channel 3. Let's everybody turn to channel 3, whatever you have. And so I brought that forward into what would become AmRRON and proposed a standardized plan for Patriot prepper-minded folks to be able to have a standard plan to reach out and at least increase the chances of reaching somebody that's like-minded and somebody that's, following this plan. And that took off, but it was when we started AmRRON, realizing, of course, amateur radio is really necessary because of the limitations of these non-licensed radio systems. There's no repeaters. You have no over-the-horizon or beyond line of sight capabilities. And GMRS wasn't a thing then. In 2011, 2012, it was in such its infancy. It was not supported like it is today. So I started AmRRON, which incorporated the CH3 non-licensed with amateur radio for local communications where we could use repeaters, and then HF communications where we could have over-the-horizon communications, which evolved into digital modes. When you look at the comparison between voice versus digital modes, it was a no-brainer. And that's what I did in the Army. I mean, we were talking to Virginia from Kuwait City using radio teletype, or RTTY. It's commonly referred to as RTTY in the amateur radio world. That's what we used. And there was no way you could ever get a voice communication from Kuwait City to Virginia, but you could using digital modes. And I had recalled this and started exploring the digital mode capabilities that are out there. And we have more capabilities now than we did when I was in the military. I wish we would have had the capabilities then that we have now as amateur radio operators. It's astounding how much it's grown. But anyway, it was designed to keep the American redoubt connected and the surrounding areas, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Eastern Oregon, and Washington. And suddenly we started having people reach out from California, from Colorado, from New Mexico, Texas, Missouri, saying, hey, we're not in the American redoubt, but can we still join? We love what you have going on. So we said, why not? Sure. The more the merrier. Well, probably about a year and a half into it, the East Coast based TAPRN net, which is the American Preparedness Radio Network, they had lost their website through a series of events, and they reached out to us and said, hey, AmRRON has a great plan and you guys are growing. Would you be open to merging TAPRN and AmRRON? And of course, after discussions, we did that. So they had a pretty well-established, very experienced operators with TAPRN who joined with the up-and-coming, quickly gaining that experience, AmRRON operators, and it just turned out to be a great partnership. And from there, it just blew up. I mean, it's hang on for the ride. I didn't have a business model for this. This was maybe we should get some type of standardized comms plan. And threw it out there, and it just took off. So, 13 and a half years later, here we are.
Hey, let's take a quick break.
Are you a prepper or homesteader looking to connect with like-minded people in your area? Looking to start your own preparedness group? Already have a group? Well, look no further than PrepperNet. PrepperNet is dedicated to personal responsibility, individual freedoms, and being self-reliant. PrepperNet has monthly meetings in over 100 cities where you can meet and learn with like-minded people in your area. PrepperNet, where preppers unite. Find us online at preppernet.com.
Wow, that is a incredible story of kind of how the pieces fell together to build the network across the entire country. The timing and everything there, it's just it is amazing what you've been able to build out of that, and the incredible resource and tool that is to everybody. Prior to that, I mean, I don't even know if during civil defense we had anything close, because nobody thinks beyond their 2-meter repeater range that they might need to communicate or might need to pass information. But those of us who are in preparedness communications, the first thing you get asked when you're talking to somebody about communications is, how can I get a hold of my son who's away at college 4 states away? Or, that's the first question they ask. But nobody thinks, and using HF and other than the military, really nobody else has access to that kind of capability that we as amateur radio operators have and can leverage.
And to have an intentional communications plan that's standardized, that can network together, where you're sharing the same standards for the type of modes and frequencies that you're using, and building really a network. And it has become, it has grown to the point where there is nothing comparable to it outside of the government as far as the ability to move communications. Now, there are some, like the LDS probably is the biggest, but for a non-institutionalized, non-government network, there isn't anything out there that is capable as AmRRON is. And even the LDS, they've got a lot of capabilities, but and they have a lot of money to put into it. It's sanctioned by their church, but it's designed to support the church. There's, once again, it's kind of like the government's programs, even that involve volunteer civilians. It is all focused on continuity of government, support the organism. And that's what the LDS is the same way, which is, no fault. I mean, we need our government to function and coordinate if we're in a major civil defense situation. But there used to be what was called civil defense. I mean, it was civil. It was focused on the population, the people, preparing them for the eventuality of a foreign attack. And it really, involved the civic side of things. And since then, it's just grown into the government, being in self-preservation mode, to heck with the people. And so that was really part of the impetus for me to put what I did into AmRRON for a wider, larger support network and information and intelligence sharing network for across the country. For the patriots-minded, prepper-minded, patriot-minded citizen, and it's been quite a ride.
That is amazing. So lately, or I guess it's been maybe a month, you dropped a new video on the AmRRON YouTube channel, which, if you're not subscribed to the AmRRON YouTube channel, please go over there and hit the subscribe button and get them some more subscribers, and check out some really great content that you're posting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've been, I didn't know how to begin, but it's the world is just absolutely so on the edge of just busting apart at the seams. I really wanted to breathe new life into the communications effort and AmRRON's role. And up till now, and this is something that, I take a sense of ownership or responsibility for, we've had so many people get left behind because we had not adequately trained to the standards. We have always had a core base of AmRRON core members who are on the air, they're on the radio, they're self-motivated. They will seek out information and knowledge and then teach others. But that is 10% of AmRRON. So you've got 90% of people saying, I know comms is important. I'm convinced. Now I don't know anything about comms. What do I do? And there's just been nothing for them. This has bothered me for a long time. And several years ago, I had a vision for starting AmRRON University, which through a series of events and technical issues and everything else got put on the back burner temporarily, which turned into permanent. And so this is, I've been working on this all spring, but I wanted to reapproach the AmRRON and communications and prepper communications that would benefit you whether you are in AmRRON or not, just to help patriots get their comms up. And I kicked that off with the AmRRON Reloaded video kind of explaining, and I've never gone on camera. I don't post pictures. I'm kind of a PERSEC type of approach person. But I thought that the timing, because of where the things that are going on in the world and the threats that we're facing and the limited amount of time I think we have to prepare, I thought that going on camera would be more personable. I thought it would be more, approachable, and I can because I've had several videos posted on the AmRRON YouTube channel for years, but I kind of sprinkle them out there, one now and next week, and then 2 months later, maybe another one. So I wanted to put out a steady flow of real actionable type of content that people could apply to get their comms up. And I've got multiple series lined up, and I'm cranking them out as fast as I can. But right now we're on very foundational type of knowledge to get folks to get their digital comms installed, set up, configured, so they can start receiving information, intelligence, news that is being passed on the AmRRON nets on a regular basis that most people have missed out on because they just need that push, that tutor to come alongside and say, okay, this is what you need to do. You click on this button next, then you do this, then you do that, and then there you go. And already I've had multiple testimonies from people who've said, I have, one guy even said, I've had like FL Digi, for example, since 2014 when I got licensed. I haven't touched it because it was confusing. But I watched this video and I set it up as I'm watching the video. And by the end of it, I'm receiving radio traffic and situation reports and the AmRRON intelligence brief. So they're like, it works, and it's simple, and it's step by step, and thank you for this. So this has been a long time coming.
That's amazing, because, you, in one of your videos, I think it was either the podcast or one of the videos you posted recently, you were talking about the people that you hear a lot of excuses. It's excuses, excuses, excuses.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot. Hey, I've got it. It's intimidating. It's scary. And kind of walking people through and showing them how to use it. I think you're doing a great thing with that. And hopefully that will bring some more people on board. And I even tell people, it's like, this stuff doesn't take a lot of hardware to run. You can probably go dig a laptop out of the recycling bin, install Linux on it, and get a laptop set up to do digital modes. It's not hard. Yes. And it doesn't have to be expensive.
Well, especially for the AmRRON members, we have a Telegram channel, AmRRON Telegram, for our members. We have what we call the ZNet walkie-talkie app and a forum. There's so much help available. Now, this current series of videos that I'm doing is focused on Windows users because that's probably the overwhelming majority of people that are getting into comms. And you can go down to a pawn shop and pick up a $150 laptop just for ham radio stuff and be off and running if you know what to do. But most of those are going to be Windows. So that's what I'm walking them through. But Linux, we have a Linux script that downloads and installs and configures every piece of ham radio equipment that we use and more. There's security-based software programs and everything else. It installs all of it. And when you do run into it, have a hiccup, there's a support network there. There's people saying, I'm trying this and this is what popped up and I don't know what to do. Somebody's going to come along and say, oh, click this, do that, go into this folder and do. You're not alone. And so that part has been really awesome. And a lot of people have been switching over to Linux because of the control that you have and because of the support that exists. So nobody's left behind, foundering and regretting the decision to get their comms up. Yeah.
I know within PrepperNet, a lot of people use the AmRRON scripts to build. I've walked a lot of people through that within that group. Literally, I'm recording here from my ham shack, and there are no less than 5 Linux computers that have the AmRRON script installed on them within arm's reach of me, and Raspberry Pis.
You're doing a great job with that. You've helped a lot of people. That's another example of AmRRON members reaching out and helping other people get set up and train and then duplicate. Train 2 other people, get them to train 2 other people, and that skill builds will. Once they gain the confidence, they can turn around, and this happens all the time. People say, I didn't know what I was doing. I was intimidated. It was overwhelming, but somebody walked me through it, and now I'm starting to understand this, and now they're turning around and helping the next guy that was in the same shoes, 90 days ago.
That's what I tell the PrepperNet people that I have in my communications group, and I know you probably tell all the AmRRON folks this as well. There's only one of me. That means I can help a limited number of people. But if I teach you, you can do that, and then we can replicate, and we can replicate, and we can replicate, and then suddenly we have 100 people that can help people get set up and get things going. And
that's where these videos have really been a force multiplier. There's only one of me. I could sit down, I could train a guy and get him all set up with comms, and he's all happy and good to go. But there's several hours that I've spent with one person. So this is a way, it's like me coming alongside and sitting down next to 1,000 people and all at once and personally walking through getting set up. And so, now you've got 1,000 people out there that are turning around and all excited, helping a buddy get theirs set up. Now there's 2,000 people out there. So this is really compounded, and it's way overdue.
And you're also creating an archive of that knowledge. So, something I'll encourage my people to do is you can download those videos off YouTube. And then if this isn't something you do every day, the grid goes down, you can still pull it up and review it and go, okay, how do I set FODigi up to do? And you can go find it and do it, even if the internet doesn't exist anymore. That's
right.
That's something we don't plan for. Everybody's used to pulling out their smartphone and looking up what they need, and that's culture shock if that goes away for people.
And if you have an aversion to YouTube, which I understand, we're also uploading these videos to Rumble, AmRRON Rumble.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely, and yes, check out there as well. So the current direction of AmRRON, I know you're building more content, you're working on the teaching and the growing and the getting, particularly, I think, more people into digital because, you know me, I'm a digital guy. I would rather sit and do, at least on HF digital, than fight with voice any day. But is that kind of the direction? Is we're trying to bring more people in, build, get speed, more people up to speed?
Absolutely. Well, and it depends. These are, and I covered this in the digital modes. What we use and why, and I demonstrated the difference between a voice contact on HF, high frequency shortwave, and a digital message. One is not copyable at all, and the other one is 100% accurate coming in, across your screen. But I also want to emphasize that's on HF. When you're talking about local communications, it's going to be voice. That's going to be, your repeaters, your direct contact, your tactical communications. This is where hey, are you getting close? Yeah, I'm almost there. I'm at the corner of such and such. It's fast. It's accurate. It's, but for operational level, maybe you need to send a consolidated situation report or some intelligence report. That's like trying to read somebody the front page of your newspaper over voice and expect them to have 100% copy of it the first shot. And so the digital modes allow us to have, archivable, searchable, recoverable, shareable, easily to digest communications. And, if I want to read the daily newspaper every day, I don't want to call into a number and have it read to me, front to back. So there's just a place for, typed written word, and that's what digital mode does. The other thing is the privacy component to it. If I am talking to a buddy of mine on local radio, any radio, pick a radio, anybody out there with a scanner can sit there and listen to everything we're saying. So when you're using digital modes, it sounds like it's a modem. It immediately reduces the audience that can make use of the information you and your buddy is sharing back and forth. They have to have the software. They have to be proficient with it. And, and so it doesn't mean somebody couldn't tune in and listen to it, but you just greatly reduced the size of your audience. And maybe you don't want something going out to everybody and their brother with a scanner. So, there is kind of a privacy component to it. And it also gives you capabilities that in a civil defense situation, you could use encryption. So anybody, even with digital mode software, intercepting your traffic could still not make use of it. But if you don't build that capability in now, you won't have it later. Now, right now on amateur radio, it's not legal to send encrypted traffic. But I'm not talking about amateur radio. The AmRRO's band is the business band. You can legally send encryption back and forth on the AmRRO's band, so you can still practice with it. And in a civil defense situation where we're being invaded, like Russia going into Ukraine, if something like that happened to the United States, the last thing I'm worried about is the FCC fining me. If I have something, a life or death information that has to be passed, somebody's life is in danger if this gets intercepted and read in the clear. So, we cover security. I have a whole series coming up on OPSEC, PERSEC, InfoSec, basically security measures. And so there's so much to teach, and there's so little time, it feels like, that I'm pedaling as fast as I can.
And I'm excited to see the coming videos on that, because I come from more of a building infrastructure and communication systems and the technological side of things, and I don't have your communications in the military background with the addition of the OPSEC and the PERSEC and a lot of the procedural stuff there. So that's something for me that's exciting to hear and to learn that side of things and brush up on those skills some more, because it is a foundation we build, and we just keep layering more pieces on top of building the onion, so that if we need the skill, we can plug that in.
I had a family member say, we're talking about video. They were asking about videos, and I said, this isn't like on the edge of your seat, real exciting content. And they were like, well, you need to put out exciting content. I'm like, I need to put out foundational so we can build upon that. So we can get to the exciting stuff and people aren't left behind. They can track along with it. So we'll get to it. We'll get to the cool stuff. But right now, this is very important and foundational. And it's not, the most exciting content. Well, it's exciting for the guy who's been frustrated because he has felt left behind and everybody else is passing all this traffic and intelligence reports and he can't get it. He doesn't know how to. And now he is.
Yeah.
That guy's excited.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see the lights kind of come on and the click when somebody's been struggling so long with it. And, a lot of times, at least in my experience, after you get them, set up with the digital side of things, really what we end up finding out is they have an antenna problem, and that's why they have not been able to effectively receive stuff. And then when it all of a sudden works, it's like, oh, wow, this is cool. This works well. And you mentioned in your experience in Kuwait that you guys were using radio teletype, and I hear this from time to time. The whole digital modes thing. It's like that's new stuff. We don't want that stuff. Radio teletype's been around since World War II. I mean, it's not new anymore. Yes. You were using it then. It's still in use. There's different forms of data communications over radio that have been around for at this point over 100 years, I think.
Well, here's what we need to really think about, because I know, especially since Hurricane Helene, there's been a lot of excitement about Starlink. Hey, I'm getting a Starlink. Well, a lot of these guys that are doing YouTube videos on, hey, this is my prepper grid down comms plan, and here's my mobile Starlink setup, which is great. I'm all about SATCOM, but man, you've got to have HF communications. There is no other over the horizon, beyond line of sight communications out there that doesn't rely on somebody's network and infrastructure except HF. It's you and a radio talking to another guy and a radio. You're not subscribed. You're not going to get shut off if they don't like what you're saying. They're not going to flip the switch and turn your satellite feed off. If something breaks, you own it and know how to troubleshoot it because you're experienced, because you have been practicing and training. You can get yourself out of, a lot of situations that if it's somebody else's equipment and it fails to work, you're done. And not to mention satellites are, especially Starlink now, is a strategic target that China and Russia have their eyes set on.
Absolutely.
And so, go with it. It's awesome comms, but don't say, okay, now I have Starlink. Now I don't need to have HF communications, for over the horizon.
Well, and, I think you have are you using an Elecraft KX3 still, or do you have another QRP rig you're using primarily?
I do. I have a Elecraft KX3 and I have a Xiegu X6100. I'll never get rid of the Elecraft because it's American made, and I don't trust the Chinese, and I don't know what all those electronic components inside of it that are in it. And speaking of satellites, one pass over the U.S. and a little command put out, and all these Chinese products stopped working. That's always in the back of my mind. So,
yeah. I think about the same thing. And, you can't, Starlink, like you said, it's great and it's a powerful tool, but I've got a KX2. I've got the little brother of the KX3. I can take the awesome KX2, radio. A little 26 gauge wire antenna, and a tablet or a laptop with me and throw it on my back and go where I need to go with it. I can't do that with a Starlink. Right. In Western North Carolina, we saw so much of that where the roads they didn't exist anymore. So if you needed to get somewhere, you were walking. Having HF, you can make a very lightweight kit, especially again, not to keep beating the dead horse of the hurricane in Western North Carolina that I've been talking about for the last 6 months. But there's a lot of lessons learned from that, and one of them was, we were communicating using NVIS at times, mostly with repeaters, because we were very fortunate that some repeaters were still working. But in rugged terrain, I know you live in very rugged terrain as well. like one place we were communicating with was 30 miles away. It was 30 miles. It was a 2.5 hour drive at least to get there. And there was so much terrain in between that it wasn't far. It wasn't a hard communication with HF. It was actually, on 80 meters, 40 meters, it was pretty easy, but it was something that wasn't possible with anything else other than Starlink, if you were lucky enough to have that. But, as we were saying, I like Starlink, but I don't want to put all my eggs in someone else's basket,
One of the issues with the Starlink as well is you have to have line of sight to the satellites. So some of these deep mountainous ravines that you find yourself in the bottom of, you have to, well, sure, you could hike up to that ridge and, get that mountain out of the way and spend 4 hours getting up there through tangled down trees and everything else. But, you fling a wire up there and you can talk to somebody 30 miles away from the bottom of a ravine.
And it takes less power too. That's one of the things I looked at with Starlink is it's not exactly energy efficient compared to a little QRP radio and a laptop that can receive for, under 12 watts, maybe 15 watts total receive. That's easy to run off solar. Starlink at 50, 75 watts. That's a much bigger undertaking.
And I have Starlink. I love it. I swear by it. But I will always have HF. And now we're talking about over the horizon, beyond line of sight, HF communications, which is not going to appeal to a considerable number of people. So more training is coming up that's going to focus on local and area, regional communications, repeaters, for example. We need to train folks on how to deploy, field portable repeaters when the repeater owners don't want you using their repeater, and that's the only one you can hit. Or in a down situation, it's not uncommon for looters to steal generators and fuel. And right now, they have an epidemic in California of people stealing copper. So you can find it. And when is the copper going to be stolen off of your repeater site? Just probably the day before some major event when you really need it.
Absolutely.
So how to deploy your own, right down to the basics, just proper radio procedure, how to make a proper radio call.
Well, and that's a skill that is unfortunately very lacking in the, and I'm going to pick on my amateur radio brethren here a little bit, but a lot of us are not really good at short, concise, specific communications. We like to carry on a conversation for 20 minutes, and that's where amateur radio and emergency communications and more strategic and tactical things don't always line up, and it is a different skill set that we have to train and practice on. And
the Ukraine-Russia conflict has really shed some light on several things. We had, at the onset of that, we have had something we've never experienced before in the history of warfare, where soldiers were using unencrypted communications and people with a software-defined radio were receiving and live streaming for the whole world to listen. Russian soldiers, confused, angry, cussing at each other. They're lost. They're trying to get directions. They've lost contact with command, and on and on. That's never happened in warfare ever, and it really brought to light the importance of encrypted communications. Now you're seeing in the Patriot community digital mobile radio for local communicate. I'm not a fan of DMR because it's internet based, and I have no use for talking to somebody on the other end of the country on a ham radio that has to use the internet. I could do that on my cell phone, but for local and area communications, I think the Patriots need to start thinking about encrypted voice communications, which these DMR radios are coming with. Now, it's not legal to use, obviously, for the amateur radio bands, but the capability is there. And once again, MRRS is in the business band. You can operate MRRS on those radios as well. And I think that, encrypted voice needs to be thought about. There are definitely some strong limitations to digital voice compared to analog, but I think that's something that we need to consider putting in our kits.
I agree, and I've been telling people for years that, the business band, it's not that hard to get a business license if you have a business or you have an NGO or an organization, or your church can get a business license, and then, your church security team can use encrypted radios at that point, because in today's world, with some of the threats that we have, do you want some nefarious person sitting, a block away from your church with a radio listening to find out, okay, this is what the security people do, when they do it, how they do it, those sorts of things that they can get from just taking notes, listening to your traffic? Or do you want to spend, a few $100s and file the paperwork and get a license to, what do you use, encryption, and,
Right.
do it differently? So, yes, something that we all need to consider and look at on that front.
Absolutely.
So I've kind of taken up a bit of your time here, and I want to be respectful of how much time that you have to do with this. Is there anything that you want to get out to the PrepperNet audience? I've got a couple last questions to ask you that are just some curious stuff, but anything that you want to get out to the PrepperNet and the Prepping Academy audience that about AmRRON, or about where you guys are going, or ways people can get plugged in? Do you want to plug T-Rex? We got a big exercise coming up in a couple of weeks. That's here.
Right. I thought you might bring that up. As far as a message to PrepperNet, or anybody out there, that you've got to get your comms up, and you don't have to become a comms expert, but somebody in your group should be. Just like I've used this example before. If you've got a network of people, a mutual assistance group, a militia, or church, disaster response, whatever it is, not everybody there needs to be an EMT, but you should have a couple of EMTs on your team, and a doctor, if you can, a nurse. Okay, but everybody should know how to put on a tourniquet. Everybody should know how to do, basic functioning, stop the bleed type of capabilities. It's the same thing with communications. Not everybody needs to get their amateur radio license and become a general class operator with all the digital modes, but you should have a couple of those on your team who are. And still, everybody, though, should know how to make a proper radio call. Everybody should be regularly practicing with it. Have a local net where you can test and practice, where people are learning how to use basic communications. Those EMTs, or those, the licensed amateur radio operators with HF, those are your lifeline to information to the outside world, to call for help, or to get information, or, keep situational awareness, to check on your loved one that's in another state, your elderly parent, you've got a college-aged kid, some people that you love and care about and you want to check on in a total grid down situation. During Hurricane Helene, the number one demand for communications was welfare traffic. Please check on my loved one. My brother-in-law, my sister, my parents, whatever, live in such and such town. They're dying for information about what's happening in this town that they haven't heard from in a week. And, so communications is just that important, including not just limiting yourself to local communications. So the series of videos that I'm working on now and are going to continue it's going to come in a steady stream. It will help AmRRON operators, and it helps with, those that are trying to adopt a standardized communications plan, but it will benefit you even if you're not in AmRRON. You don't have to be in AmRRON to understand communications. And AmRRON will continue to pass a lot of traffic over the air. It's there going over your head right now. All you got to do is grab it out of the air. And so even if you're not a member of AmRRON, learn how to at least receive it. That's your Fox News, in a grid down situation. That's your daily dose of what the heck is going on in the world and out there and on the, past the edge of my town. And so, I wanted to say that. And there's a great opportunity for you to practice, and there's plenty of time too, because T-Rex, our 12th annual Teotihuacan readiness exercise is coming up on July 25th, 26th, and 27th. And that is a 3-day or 48-hour, starting from Friday through Sunday, grid down, scenario-based simulated emergency training exercise with the heavy emphasis on communications. So there are a lot of folks that are doing their own training weekend. They're learning how to can. They're putting on a first aid class. They're doing whatever. But they also have comms that they'll be tuned into to tune into the AmRRON nets and receive and share these intelligence reports just like as if it was the real thing. So it's a good opportunity for you then to turn around, share that with your group. Hey, this is the latest. This is what just happened. There's train derailment here. There's a, grid down over there. And so it could be a lot of fun for you to practice with your radio equipment, especially HF, your shortwave radio receivers.
Excellent. And I think one of the things I want to bring to everybody's attention here too is I know within PrepperNet we've occasionally had people that think T-Rex is more of an American readout thing. It goes on there, but no, it's a national event. And I don't know, I don't ever see the traffic on the West Coast, but sometimes I suspect that there may be more traffic that's generated over here during T-Rex than actually comes from over there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but it is everywhere.
Yeah, you'll get regional information, of course. The people in the Western United States are going to receive mostly Western traffic. But we also have a Tier 5 and Tier 6 network. Their job is to move traffic across the country. So if you've got that welfare traffic and you want to check on that loved one that's in North Carolina and you live in Montana, the network will get that piece of traffic there and a response back, an acknowledgement that it was delivered. And, there's, like I was saying, outside the government, there's no other non-institutional network that can handle the communications that we do on the scale and the reach. And it is, it started in the American Redoubt, and we continue to call it the American Redoubt Radio Operators Network. But it is actually international now, and I don't talk about it much, but we also have what we call the AmRRON Foreign Legion with members in South Africa, in Japan, in Canada, in Panama. I'd have to look. They're all over the place, and more inquiring. The UK, people have asked, what can I do to start an AmRRON net here in the UK? And Germany, Italy, we've had inquiries. So that's going to be another component that we'll be addressing here, kind of behind the scenes, because we have to really be intentional about that type of network that can be dedicated, personnel who could be dedicated to make sure that we can get piece of traffic to the UK or from Japan, or, directional antennas, people that are committed to, pointing toward Panama and getting information to and from them. And, let's take one country, for example, Panama. We know that the Chinese and the Russians are very active, especially the Chinese, in South America. And there have been a lot of intelligence reports expressing concern about using South America, specifically Panama, as a jump-off point to move Chinese Communist Party assets into the southern part of the United States. So, having eyes and ears all over the place can be very beneficial to us. Mostly what's in your face is going to be what you're mostly concerned about. So in other words, your local communications and what's happening in your community, that's your first order of business. But if you've got Chinese forces coming up, across our southern border in an invasion, you want to know about that. You don't want to be surprised to learn about that when they're showing up, at the edge of your community. So there's a lot to be said about knowing what's going on outside your immediate area. That's why we watch Fox News, or we watch, we follow Telegram channels, and we stay informed of what's happening out there, right?
That I did not know that AmRRON had members. I knew there were some in South Africa and a few other places, but I'm excited to see it expanding. And of course, I see a few people from the Great Frozen North check into nets every once in a while.
Yes.
But that's exciting to see that it's growing and people are taking an interest in what's available and what's out there. So that is super exciting. So. Absolutely. Kind of as a wrap up here and a little bit lighter note, got a couple radio questions for you, just for curiosity's sake, that some of the radio listeners, the people that like radio stuff, might find interesting. And I don't want to start any 9mm versus 45 wars or that kind of thing here, but that is the nature of radio at times. But anyway, what is your favorite HF radio? Do you have one that doesn't necessarily have to be the best for emergency communications? It's just one that you really enjoy using and have, a connection to, that's like your favorite radio to use?
Well, there's probably two of them. I would say my Elecraft KX3, because it is just an amazing radio and it's American made, uses an extremely low amount of power, awesome for the field, great filtering, and it's got built-in modes. It's got an analog screen. It's not the fancy waterfall full color thing, but man, it's just hard to beat, especially for a QRP rig. But I would say my overall favorite is my ICOM 7200. That is my first HF rig that I bought many years ago. It's my daily driver. I use it on a day-to-day basis, and for running nets, the filtering on that is amazing. And it's probably the closest thing out there, and at least has been for a better part of a decade, the closest thing to a mil-spec civilian radio. It even kind of looks like a military style radio. But I love the features that are in it. It only does HF, but it does HF really, really well. And so, full powered, it goes up to 100 watts, and it does pull more amperage, obviously, than my Elecraft KX3, but that is overall definitely my very favorite.
That is a great radio, and I've always been sad that they discontinued that radio and did not replace it with something as rugged, because we need more rugged gear. I
do have a 7300 on my wish list. When I can, I would like to get a ICOM 7300 with the full waterfall color screen and, automatic tuner. I still run a manual tuner, and on that radio, I have automatic tuners for 3 other radios, but that one is great. And I love my Yaesu 897, which is stowed away in Faraday right now. That has an automatic tuner, and that's like a Swiss Army knife of ham radios. It's amazing. So, that would probably be my third favorite.
Awesome. Yeah. My daily driver at the moment is a 7300 for digital modes. I encourage everybody who's looking to buy a radio, if it's your first radio, it's a great first radio to get. It's very capable.
You won't grow out of it. You'll grow into it. A lot of amazing capabilities. It's all the radio you would ever need. If you could just buy one, I would go with a 73.
And I will tell you from, doing net control stuff that I have abused this radio with transmit duty cycles, and I have never made it up to like the first red mark on the temperature gauge. it manages it great. So yeah, it is a great radio, and I can understand why that one is on the wish list. Now the last question is, are you more of a end-fed half-wave or a center-fed dipole guy? What's your favorite antenna for use?
Definitely a center-fed dipole. Having two wires coming off the center is, in my experience, outperforms an end-fed half-wave any day of the week. But saying that, I do have 3 end feds, and those are in my field kits because it's way easier to field expediently deploy an end fed antenna than it is to get a dipole up in the air. Now, I do have a dipole that I have in a bag that I go to the field with, and if I've got the space, the trees, the height, everything, and the time, I will go ahead because of superior performance, I will run with a dipole, but I rarely use it. I would say 90% of the time I will use an end-fed half-wave in the field because I can deploy it so quickly. I can tear it down, throw it in my pack, and be gone if I need to, and it does a great job. It's an omnidirectional antenna that does a really good job. Not as good as a dipole, but I don't know if I've ever missed a contact because I was on an end-fed dipole or an end-fed half-wave.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious. I am a dipole guy, but much like you, I tend to use end-fed half-waves in the field just for convenience and field expedient speed's sake.
Yep.
But I do love my dipoles. So, all right. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. It was great to have you on the show today. It was great to get a chance to spend some time talking about AmRRON and learning some more about AmRRON. And again, it's good to hear that you guys are okay with all the craziness that's gone on in the last few weeks up in your neck of the woods. So,
yeah, for sure. Well, hey, thank you for having me. It's always great to talk to you, and I appreciate all the work that you do for PrepperNet and your support of AmRRON and your contribution in AmRRON, and you just doing a yeoman's work there. So I can empathize with the load that you have in your position. So keep up the great work.
Well, thank you, and you keep up the great work as well. I know everybody is enjoying the new videos and the new content and the new material, and hopefully you are continued to have the opportunity to do that and have the time and that kind of thing, because you're doing an absolutely great job with that. So again, thank you for taking a few minutes to come on and chat with us. And I hope you have a wonderful and safe 4th of July. Everybody listening, we were recording this before the 4th. You'll hear it after, but
yep, you as well. Well, hey, God bless everybody. Stay vigilant and get your comms up.
7-3, everybody. We will see you next time on Grid Down, Comms Up.
Thanks for listening to the Prepping Academy podcast. Preppers Unite at www.preppingacademy.com.
Has your data been hacked? Do you feel uneasy about the vulnerability of your personal information online? Were you involved in the Target, LinkedIn, or Microsoft data leaks? Don't know? If not, then pay attention. Join Forrest Garvin from PrepperNet for a free webinar on privacy and security. Gain insights into safe internet browsing, VPNs, crafting online aliases, secure emails, detecting if your data has been hacked, and managing passwords. Secure your spot today for this webinar on privacy and security. It's free. This webinar delves into comprehensive strategies for bolstering your online privacy. We've got you covered, from fortifying your passwords to shielding your financial information and mastering state-of-the-art encryption techniques. We're offering 2 convenient dates to suit your schedule. Reserve your spot now at preppernet.com/privacy. Don't let cyber threats erode your peace of mind any longer. Take the first step toward a safer, more secure online experience by joining us for our free webinar. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to safeguarding your privacy. Sign up now at preppernet.com/privacy. We'll see you there.